Hello, my name is Dazal, and this is a terrible PowerPoint about Yorick, my ex-main and probably my favorite champion in League of Legends. Yorick's champion identity. So Yorick is a bruiser who skid circles around overpowering enemies with numbers via his ghouls and his maiden, and still being decently strong by himself and being able to put pressure on side lanes whilst your team is doing objectives or team fighting so that it becomes a 4v5, or you just straight up win the game if the enemy team just ignores you because you just slam their lane down and yeah, that's it. So now for Yorick's kit. Yorick's passive is called Shepherd of Souls. Yorick raises a grave for every enemy he kills with less rights, which is his skill, as well as for every enemy champion and large monster that just dies near him. Additionally, Yorick raises a grave for every 12, 6, and 2nd, based on level, enemy that dies or that rise near him, so minions essentially. Up to 4 graves can exist at once, with the furthest one being replaced by the newest. Yorick can recast his Q or Morning Mist, which is his E, to raise Mistwalkers from their graves. Mistwalkers are the ghouls that I mentioned on the introduction. They scale on your AD and your HP, and up to 4 can be present at once. So Yorick's skill is called Less Rights. It's fairly basic auto attack reset. It's just that he gains a little bit of healing, and he heals more if he's lower on health. It's his main trading tool for early game and decent burst, and also a good part of why he's so good at split pushing, because he can reset his auto. His auto hits really hard, and you also gain a little bit of range, which is always nice. So, Yorick's W. His W summons essentially just a wall with a 0.75 delay, and enemies are trapped inside it, and they can break it with 2 to 4 autos depending on the amount of levels you put in the skill. It's a really buggy ability, like it's terrible to play against, and to use it's not that bad, but to play against is terrible because you try to target Yorick, you end up targeting the wall and you just no clips inside and etc. You mostly use this just to set up your E, or to run away, or to run after someone, essentially just impairing mobility so your ghouls can hit them, or yeah. So Yorick's E is called Morning Mist. He just throws some sand, essentially, on the marked area. It does a little bit of max current health damage, 50%, and the minimum damage scales with AP, but like, who the fuck builds AP on Yorick? And enemies that are hit are slowed by 30% for 2 seconds and marked as cursed for 4 seconds. So when a target is cursed, they take 20% damage from the next 8 attacks by your ghouls, and they instantly raise ghouls from their graves. And when they are risen from their graves, or when you just hit it on the enemy, they gain a bunch of movement speed. You also gain a bunch of movement speed towards the enemy. And the Mistwalkers, the ghouls, will jump into the nearest enemy and deal a bunch of damage, scaling with their own AD that scales with your own AD. Keep in mind that it's gonna be important later. So, Yorick's ultimate, essentially his bread and butter. He just summons his fucking wife, and that's it. Okay, I'm obviously joking. He summons the Maiden of the Mist, and with her he summons an amount of ghouls near her on cast that scales on ability level, but it's mostly not really important. The maiden follows you around, and she deals % max health AP damage every few seconds, and every time Yorick attacks the same target as the maiden, you deal some, I think it's like 1 or 2% magic damage, you know, % health, max health, magic damage, which makes Yorick's dueling really good with maiden and makes his lane phase post level 6 extremely strong. Also, she is basically permanent. She only can die when her HP is depleted, there is no time limit. So yeah, you cast it, you can essentially just leave her there. And you can recast the ultimate, but I don't really think it's a good idea, because the Maiden's AI is already terrible when you're controlling her, because, spoiler alert, you can't fucking control her because Riot hates Yorick, and like that's where 75% of his bugs come from. But yeah, and then you can press R and she will essentially just side lane for you. You can just leave her on a lane, so you can go like put Maiden side laning on top lane to push the wave and maybe try to get a turret or just damage on turret, because it's very rare that she actually accomplishes something. And then you can go bot lane and you apply pressure on both lanes at the same time, but it's really niche, it's really inconsistent, so yeah, wouldn't do that. So Yorick's strengths, he has a really high DPS late game. Like 4 goals plus Maiden plus EU, it's so much damage. Like, it's wild the amount of damage you can deal. Like, even for a bruiser, it's very bursty, it's very high DPS, essentially makes you a master at 1v1s. That's part of his really big, really high strength on side lanes, on split pushing. And yeah, he has great split pushing, because his summons hit the turret. Most of his builds use a Shin item, which is when you cast a skill, your next auto attack will be empowered, and it synergizes really well with his skill, because his skill casts a skill and then he buffs the next auto. And you also will probably be running Demolish, which is like probably the best fucking thing you can do on Yorick. It just chunks the turret, and yeah, it's really high pressure. Like, there's this thing called the 40-second rule, which is if you're decently fed late game and you have 40 seconds from the tier 2 turret, like you get into the tier 2 turret, you know, the second one, and then you just count 40 seconds and you'll probably be at the very least inhibitor, at most you just end the game. It's really fast, really strong split pushing. His builds are very versatile, I mean kinda, they were much more versatile before, but right now there's only really 2 good builds that I will talk about. He has decent durability. I mean, it's not like Malphite levels of durability, but you're not squishy, you still heal a bit with your Q. Yeah, you can, thanks to hits, especially with the more tanky builds. He has very high snowball potential, like really high. You get 1 kill, and that 1 kill turns into a mini wave and a bunch of plates, because, you know, Yorick destroys turrets really fast. Then you have a billion gold, you buy your first item, which is a massive power spike, especially for Yorick, and then you just run over the game from there. He doesn't really rely on his team, which is kind of a double-edged sword, because if your team is really strong, it's not gonna really impact your gameplay, but same is as if they are weak, you know, because you're mostly just gonna be side laning on your own, and yeah. His ultimate is permanent, essentially, so, I mean, it doesn't die. And so, like, when you're trading, you use your ulti, you kill the enemy, for example, and they use their ulti. You still have your ulti for the next trade, and etc. Which makes Yorick very oppressive for post 6 on the laning phase. Um, he's great against part team coordination, like really good. I mean, most split pushing champions are, but especially Yorick, because he can really punish when the enemy underestimates your strength and overestimates it. If they send two guys to stop you on the side lane, your team can just go Drake, and if they try to contest it, it's gonna be a 3v4. If they send one person, actually, sorry for my English, terrible. If they only send one person, you probably can just win the 1v1, and sometimes you can even win 1v2s or 1v3s because of your very high scaling and very high damage and etc. And also, the champion is very buggy, like the targeting is terrible against Yorick, so sometimes it does work in your favor. You can use your wall to like stun people. Essentially, if you trap them into a natural wall, it tanks turret shots for some reason, like it's prioritized by turret, because I don't know. And Yorick's weaknesses, he's really, really bad before level 6. Like, you have to use your Q to raise up the graves, and it's really annoying to do so. His ghouls are very squishy, so the enemy can just go, hit your ghouls, and then for like 20 seconds you can't really do anything against them. You know, this gets fixed post 6 because every minion that the maiden kills, or you kill while the maiden is targeting it, turns into a ghoul instantly, which is great. Yorick is low and kiteable, which doesn't seem like a really big weakness, until you run into the fat enemy Jinx that just clicks on you and walks backwards, or the mages, or even some top laners that are more skill-aligned, you know, Aatrox, Gangplank. They can kite you very well. They just dodge your E, you can't really do anything. Yorick's teamfighting is also terrible. He's mostly single target. Most of the time your ghouls will be just evaporated by a random male wish shit that is thrown into your team. You can't really have that much utility. The most you can do is use your W, but like, it's very low range. You get into range with your W, you're probably already dead and being focused out by the enemy team. It's also very easy to gank, like really easy, because you know, you don't have any dashes, you have low base movement speed, and if you miss your W, you're just dead essentially, and your W has a really high cooldown. And he's a one-trick pony. You know, like, he just split pushes and that's it. There's not much more. Like, yeah, sometimes if you're really fat, you can solo Baron at 20 minutes, but it's really inconsistent, and you probably just die if anyone gets near you. Also, Maiden has a really high cooldown early game, which makes it so you use her and you lose, you're fucked. You're just fucked. It's like you have to wait 3 whole minutes to replace the Maiden, and that's 3 minutes where you're useless and your opponent can just pressure you, dive you, go for plays around the map, and you're just sitting there waiting. And he's kinda useless when behind. If you're really weak, there you don't deal much damage to towers, and you don't have much pressure on the enemy team, because like they just can either send one person that is not that strong to stop you, or at least to hold you off. Like, if you're weak, they can just send a Lulu or a support or whatever to stop you from split pushing. And he's also very buggy. Maiden is very buggy, it's terrible. She just sometimes randomly walks into the enemy turret and just stands still, and she dies, and then you just get fucked. She has terrible targeting. If you don't eat anything, she just targets randomly, which is not supposed to happen actually, but it does because Riot fucking sucks. And yeah, those are Yorick's strengths and weaknesses. So for Yorick's build, Lethality. It's probably the best build Yorick has currently, and for me it's the most fun, like by far, because you can just one-shot people with your E. and the turrets go down really fast because lethality applies on turrets, so you take out the turret's armor, which is very good. And also lethality applies to your ghouls, so they also get lethality from your items, which is great. The strengths I already kind of talked about. You have very high ghoul damage because you build a ton of AD. You have very high carry potential because you do a lot of damage, and you also can decently teamfight, which is good, but like it's not that big of a strength. It's just okay. It doesn't really rely on Maiden mid game to late game. It really doesn't, because your damage comes almost 100% from your ghouls. Its mid and early game is better than most other builds Yorick can go. Like, it's maybe worse than... I don't know, it's the best early game build for Yorick because lethality is very, very, very strong early game because it's flat armor reduction, so you do a billion damage with your ghouls. But citing onto his weaknesses, it's kinda bad late game. I mean, it's not bad because you're Yorick, you're good late game, but it's much worse than other builds because lethality does flat armor removal, and flat armor removal sucks late game because everyone's gonna have like at least 100 armor. Also, it's extremely goal dependent. Your goals are dead. It doesn't matter if you have Maiden, you're probably just gonna lose duels. It's very expensive. Its items are really, really expensive. Like, the core item is 3,400 gold, which is Profane Hydra. Also, it's really squishy. You get CC'd, you probably just die on the spot because you have 2,500 HP and like 80 armor at most, so kinda sucks. And it's also pretty hard to play because it's really reliant on both your macro sense and your precision with your E's. You know, you miss the E, your ghouls do essentially nothing, and you lose a lot of damage. And yeah, that is lethality, the best build Yorick has right now. So Yorick's Bruiser build is a very interesting one because it focuses on having like being a jack of all trades, master of none. You are decently tanky, you heal a bit, you deal a lot of damage, and that turns you into a fucking demon in the side lane because you're tanky, you can take on duel after duel after duel, and you're just unstoppable if you get ahead, and if they try to stop you, you can even sometimes just kill them and flip fights around. It's probably the best build he has late game because, you know, you have the Shin item, you have a lot of health, you have a lot of armor, you have a lot of damage, you have plenty of good utility effects like Black Cleaver, which is gonna reduce their armor by a certain percent. You have the more tankier items, the shield from Sterak's Gauge, and etc. It has really high DPS because of the Maiden passive that gives you 1 or 2% max health damage when you hit the enemy. This build has a lot of attack speed coming from Trinity, and you have more time to hit the enemy because you're more tanky. And it doesn't really depend on ghouls. Like, Yorick is dependent on ghouls, but like, this build is much less than the other ones. And you can just solo kill people if you are ahead. You just go, trap them, and just start smacking them. And it's also deceptively tanky. You have really good healing with your kill, especially if you're playing Conqueror. If you're going Conqueror, you're just unkillable if you're fat. But it does have some pretty big weaknesses. On its team fighting is like terrible. You just end up walking around doing nothing because even if you hit your E, it doesn't deal significant enough damage to really impact the team fight. So you just kind of chase around the AD carry, you take a bunch of stuns and you die. It has kind of low burst damage compared to the lethality build. It is okay burst damage, you know, because Yorick has a very high burst damage on his kit. It also has a really poor early game. Trinity Force, which is the first item you always go on this build, has kind of a bad build path. And like HP early game is not that great of a stat. It's decent, but not anything to write home about. Also, it's very reliant on Maiden because of the 1v1s, because of the way Maiden works. She scales with your HP, so you really like your Maiden because it's mostly... Yeah, you're dependent on Maiden. I can't really explain it because I'm fucking stupid. And the items are also expensive. They are more expensive actually than the Lethality items. You know, Trinity Force is 363 price, you know, 33,033. No, sorry, 3,333. Fucking tripping. I don't know numbers. Like Stairs Gauge is 300,400 gold. It's really bad. No, not 300,000. I'm sorry, I'm terrible with numbers in English. Whatever. So yeah, that's it for now. Thank you very much. This is my first PowerPoint video and essentially just my first more effort video. I would greatly appreciate on other champions or like suggestions. If you wanna do, I don't know. Oh hey, talk about Darius, which by the way I will talk about. Then just suggest to me the other things that I did wrong, things you would like, and yeah, because I'm really open to criticism and I really want to grow as a content creator. So yeah, leave a like and subscribe, or else Yorick is gonna demolish our house, and yeah, goodbye.